Thank you, Mr. Chairman. An honor to serve on the subcommittee. It's been a terrific hearing. Thank you so very much. I have a couple questions here. First, for Mr. Powell. After speaking with a medium-sized broadband provider in my district, they were concerned that during this push for reclassification, the FCC has not conducted a single study on the impact that reclassification would have on small and medium-sized operators. What are your thoughts on the ability of small and medium-sized ISPs to handle the increased burden of Internet regulation?
I think it's fair to say they're deeply concerned. I would emphasize that the FCC has a legal obligation on the Regulatory Flexibility Act to take special consideration of small businesses in the cost-benefit analysis of their decisions. Our members have filed with the Commission raising grave concerns that they have not complied with the RFA as part of that analysis. That's an ongoing conversation with the Commission, but yet another potential vulnerability in the rules that will come out from the Commission.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Turner-Lee, and I know you touched upon this, but maybe you want to elaborate a little bit. I have a couple of areas in my district, Lakuchi and Trilby, as many members do, where even today Internet adoption is significantly behind the rest of the country, and they're struggling to get reliable broadband and up and running. Can you explain why Title II reclassification could disproportionately impact and further harm communities with lower broadband adoption already?
Yes, thank you, Congressman. So in my testimony and on record, I actually put more statistics in there to actually talk about the fact that relevance actually leads when it comes to the reasons why people do not get online. The cost of broadband as well as the type of device actually come after why do I need to use this tool. And I think for all of us in this room, if we want to equalize the democracy, as it was said earlier, we need to get people online so they can realize the full value. The challenge with Title II, to your question, is, again, as I've said, that we still have to get everybody to the starting point before we get to the finish line. And trying to manage around some of the hypothetical harms of what the Internet can do really does a disservice. And under monopoly era telephone service, we can only talk and hear. Under broadband, we can talk, hear, discuss, engage, see, and do other things. And for communities of color, we want to solve social problems that are chronic, like chronic disease or the lack of educational resources, et cetera. The possibilities and aspirations of the Internet are so great, and why would we try to restrict and regulate something that is really just still in its infancy? And for our communities, again, relevance is the issue. We've got to move people of color, more vulnerable populations like the poor and the disabled and seniors and the folks who do not speak English as first language to the Internet for the power of government resources so they can move from an inline economy to an online economy. We've got to move them into places where we can solve those problems, much like in Florida, where people are not taking advantage of the new technology. And having a restrictive Title II stance, I think, has its impacts outside of chilling investment and deployment.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Powell, will Title II regulation do anything to encourage incumbents to upgrade networks or new companies to enter the market?
Well, I'd like to take the latter part of your question because I think this is a serious overlooked aspect of Title II. It's a major disincentive for a new competitor to enter the market. And all you need to do to look for evidence is some of the examples that are held up as sterling new entry, like Google Fiber. Google Fiber entered the market. By the way, it only entered the market in a handful of selected cities. It elected to provide broadband service and elected to provide video service, but refused to offer telephone service. It refused in its own public statements in saying it chose not to provide telephone service because of the regulatory compliance costs associated with being a telephone company. In fact, the President of the United States was in Iowa recently, in Cedar Falls, talking about the municipal broadband company that provides a very fast Internet service. That company also provides broadband and video service. To date, provides no telephone or telecommunication service, in part because of the regulatory costs and incentives. Title II fundamentally assumes an incumbent state-sanctioned monopoly, and it tends to provide a regime that's very hostile to entering and providing a new and competitive alternative.
Thank you very much. I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back his time. We now go to the gentleman